Chapter 37 to 39. Kakuzu came down and sat into his rocking chair. He took into his hands 2 knitting needles and giddily thought. What should I make? Socks? No, those are bland. What about a pink scarf? These sell well. His body was bouncing up and down in giddiness as Maro, the swordsman, interrupted him. Kakuzudano, did your Suiton heart perhaps discover who they sent after us? Kakuzu grumbled under his nose about time-wasting idiots of teammates but answered. No. It is lurking around Kiri but nothing ye dash. A knocking sound resounded through the room, making both of them tense. I will go and check. Maro politely told Kakuzu. Kakuzu shrugged, slightly loosening his strands in preparation for a fight. Sighing, he took 1 knitting needle into his hand as he sadly pondered about the futility of it all. Suddenly he heard a buzzing sound, but before he could warn Maro, he saw a sword enhanced with right-un piercing through the wall, decapitating the useless idiot. Damn, he was not worth his money. Kakuzu grumbled mentally as he stood up. The door fell down, revealing a man in white kimono and a plain white Anbu-style mask holding a chakuto gleaming with right-un chakra. As the door stopped obstructing the way, a dense white mist rushed past the man, shrouding him in itself as it started filling the house. Kakuzu didn't hesitate. Futon Atsugai. The pressurized wind blew the entire front of the house away as it dispersed most of the mist in front of it for a whole kilometer. Kakuzu groaned as he saw it. As the air hit the masked man, he changed into water. It was a water clone. Kakuzu grumbled at the humiliation of having his hired sword killed off by a water clone. Maybe it was time to spend to invest. Yes, to invest some money into a proper fighter? Perish the thought, his money. Kakuzu didn't have much time to ponder as he clicked his tongue. The mist war returning. As he saw the density of the mist, he realized who he was fighting. Ray of Kiri, leave. You have no bounty. You are worthless. He impassively stated. Shit. Why must my luck be so bad? If I am to be attacked, at least make it someone who can shit gold. Kakuzu internally cried. As he got no reaction from the mist, he frowned and with a resigned sigh. Boom. He jerked as he heard the explosion coming from the room with Kurumi and their hostage. He would pull his hair if it helped. His money was running away. He pulled out his fire and wind mask from his back in anger. So be it. The masks suddenly surged with an incredible amount of chakra as they did a combination jutsu of futon, atsugai and katan, intelligent hard work. The world burned. A few moments after Kakuzu left the room with the son of Daimyo. Kurumi sighed as she watched her body moan from pleasure. Genjutsu it may be, but it made her incredibly annoyed to keep it up. But this was her chance. She would never get so close to the son of Daimyo. If she showed her good points to him and he got interested, she would be a winner. Her expression slacked as she imagined the dreamy lifestyle of a noble concubine. But then she froze for a second before instantly weaving hand signs. You are good. But I am not the partner of Kakuzu for my incredible looks alone. She smirked, seeing a female figure with neck-long bluish hair and plain white mask appear near the window, standing there without moving. Genjutsu success. Kurumi snorted. She put the woman under a nasty genjutsu of losing all 5 senses. Kurumi boredly flung a kunai into the forehead area of the unmoving figure after she looked over the curves of the figure, giddily noting she was not losing. She saw the kunai get stabbed up to the handle through the mask into the forehead of the figure. Why would they send someone so we Kurumi was saying while shaking her head when her eyes got wide as the figure started bloating. Boom. Kurumi managed to cover her face with her arms to prevent damage, but her body was still flung into the wall behind her due to the explosion. It impacted the wall and slid down as Kurumi ended on her ass. She groaned and blinked a few times to get a clear view. It took her at most 4 seconds to get her mind back into the fighting condition, but all she could do was gape as the moaning and writhing noble's body was pulled via chakra strings from the bed, dragging it through the newly made hole in the wall the explosion caused. She just lost her hostage. Shit. Kakuzu will kill me. No. He will whore me for money and then kill me. Kurumi's mind was panicking. She lost 5 billion ticket. This was bad. Poor Kurumi was unaware that Kakuzu already knew as he let a few strands of his in the room, connected to his body. She suddenly felt an incredible surge of chakra. Shit! Was the only thing her terrified mind could produce before pain. Rei and Konan watched from a nearby hill as the madman produced a combination of katan and futon jutsu, creating a firestorm engulfing the entire area. Damn, that must have burned half of the forest. Rei exclaimed as he sat on the groaning noble prick they were hired to save. The princeling was all dirty from mud and dust, not to say his sweat as Rei's strings dragged him a few kilometers on the ground in a few seconds. Only his protective layer of Doton chakra made the civilian survive the ordeal. Yes, he certainly didn't pull punches. Konan nodded boredly. Well, let's go. No need to stick with him here. We have a delivery. Rei kicked the boy he was sitting on with his heel. To finish. Yes, I will leave a few clones to play with the guy. Konan smiled and 10 paper clones formed around them, rushing at Kakuzu as Rei and Konan turned around and walked away. Their mission half accomplished. Kakuzu growled. Sure, he killed Kurumi, but the bitch deserved it. He looked at the scorched newly made clearing as his katan/futon completely burned the cottage to ash. He was about to rejoin the masks when he was forced to lean back as futon-enhanced paper almost hit his shoulder. His growl intensified. Kakuzu suddenly jumped up while lifting his legs to his chest, evading 3 Doton papers that crashed into the ground, spreading cracks through it. His left hand was sent flying towards the ground where it buried into it, flinging his entire body to the side to evade sharp futon paper shurikens while his 2 masks started blasting futon, atsugai and katan, intelligent hard work all around. The whole field was full of flames, pressurized wind, and incredibly durable paper, creating a hailstorm of danger. Kakuzu sped up towards a silhouette of a person and engaged it in a bout of taijutsu. He was winning. Kicking that person around like a rag doll. It was a woman, he noted. She was good at technique and speed, but her body lacked power compared to his. It was as if she were made of. His eyes widened when he was about to deliver a punch to her face, only for his arm to bury into her head up to his elbow. He didn't even have a chance to hear any sizzling sound before. Boom. The paper clone made solely of exploding tags blasted a crater of the size of a small lake into the ground. Kakuzu wobbly stood up, noting his arm ripped to shreds from the explosion. He at least managed to harden his body with Doton iron skin. He was shaking his head to get his ears into working condition again when he spat blood from his mouth. He looked down, only to see a womanly hand with blue, very cared for, nails covered in his blood as his was sticking from his chest, holding his heart that painted these blue nails bloody red. Kakuzu snarled as his threads made short work of the Woma dash. He cursed. Of the clone he noted as he saw it dissolve into paper. He lost 1 heart to a clone. His right on one. He felt ashamed. He who survived Hashirama. Fuck this shit. He still had his Doton heart in his body. He decided to get serious. His body parts fall apart, the black threads coming out of it. He noted his futon and katan masks killed 4 paper clones so far. 4 assailants remained. You are a lucky girl. 6 out of 10 all clones. But now I have a 25% chance to hit the original. Kakuzu stated as the threads expanded all around him, trying to appear threatening while the threads from his feet entered underground, approaching his opponents. It has a brain. It can talk. It can count. It can do the math. The clones dryly uttered one after another and jumped to the side, evading the threads shooting from the ground, pissing Kakuzu off even more, making him focus on them. They were supposed to stall. So stall they would. Kakuzu could only hopelessly watch as his enemy took the defensive approach and swapped to ranged tactics. He understood. These 2 clones that injured him were there to slow his body, and the 4 clones his masks destroyed were to observe his attack pattern. The 4 in front of him were only a nuisance to stall him. He understood he lost his 5 billion Rio hostage for good. With a snarling fury he jumped into the battle. And while Kakuzu fought, Rei looked at the rapist who was being dragged in his chakra strings. He was mulling if it wasn't better to do the world a favor and kill the guy off, suffering the first failed mission in his career. He could understand Reikage ordering kidnappings of Keikai Genkai girls. Not condone it and certainly not approve, but understand the reason he could. It was all politics and for the village. Disgusting, but it worked in the long run. Maybe cruel, but it was efficient. The women were miserable. But males? For those more informed, the Reikage, at least the third, actually preferred to kidnap males and showered them with literal harems of kunoichi to pamper the shit out of them in any way conceivable. They got wealth. They got any woman they pointed at if she didn't belong to someone else and was agreeable to the disgustingly high pay procuring a kid with Keikai Genkai would give her. They lived in heaven on earth, and after their usability was finished, they were allowed to keep 3 of their favorite kunoichi. They just could not complain. Rei could also understand Mizukage trying to manipulate him to have sex with the women of Kiri to produce babies. Conan had to chase these away on a weekly basis. It would first tie him down to Kiri and second, create a future shinobi with good potential. Not to say shinobi who would be raised in Kiri, and shinobi Rei would actually teach everything he knew as they would be his kids. If they revealed to Mizukage that Conan had Keikai Toda? Rei was sure even Mizukage would pull Reikage on Rei, drowning him in money and women. He would at least not think of putting hands on Conan, as he was aware she could blow Kiri to high heavens if she was so inclined. He was manipulative. Not stupid. He knew even restrained and bound, Conan could still use her paper. Rei also understood the idiotic way Hiruzen tried or will try to manipulate Naruto. It was stupid, to say the least, as it could have backfired in any conceivable way possible. But it was a solid attempt at manipulation for the good of the village. Heck! Rei could even understand Danzo. He hated how he treated and mind-fucked the orphans, all to make them a tool for himself. He was very put off when he read about it in his old world. After he actually became a shinobi and saw a bit of the Narutoverse? He didn't quite admire the man, more like felt disgust but grudging respect. Not everybody would be a monster enough to do what Danzo did, and wholeheartedly believed it was for the greater good of his village. It really put things into a perspective. Rei had no delusions. If Hiruzen stayed Hokage for 10 more years, little Naruto would spend days in the eager care of many Konoha kunoichi to recreate the Uzumaki clan in Konoha and make sure Yondaime had some grandkids that could inherit Hiraishin. Oh, Naruto was never meant to inherit that jutsu. Scorned Jinchuriki with Hiraishin? That was a disaster just waiting to happen. What? Some clueless fools believed that Hokage didn't have access to it? Huh. Blood seal? Naruto was on his beck and call. As was his blood. The problem was more in the setup of Hiraishin seal, Rei surmised from his knowledge of seals. It must be a bloodline-linking seal that was usable in its full ability only for Minato's descendants. Minato after all had or will have access to Uzumaki seals via Kushina, and this one was widely used by that clan. That was the reason why most scrolls looted from Uzushiogakure were deemed worthless and the entire raid was marked as a glaring failure. That was the only thing that would prevent it from being learned willy-nilly. And since no one knew Hiraishin jutsu in the future he knew of, Rei was almost 100% sure that was what Minato would do. Key it to his descendants only. Of course, he as the seal master could give someone a tweaked seal that could be used, say, by his bodyguards. But it would be a very watered-down version. It was very important for the villages that bloodlines survived. The Kages really pulled no moral stops to ensure that. Naruto dodged that bullet due to Tsunade thinking of him as her grandson. She didn't want him to live a life of debauchery. To lose his innocent nature. Or whatever went through her head. As for Sasuke, for him it was an obvious conclusion. The girls were fangirls. But most of them? Their parents tried to push them onto him. Yes, he would be given kunoichi to reproduce the clan. But if he liked a civilian girl? He could take her. Nobody would complain if the almost extinct Uchiha clan got more kids. Rei marveled at the amount of information about these matters he could find in the Kiri library. They were not even restricted. The second Mizukage had 5 women not of his clan to keep the Hozuki clan up and running and inject new blood, for example. Most clans practice polygamy. And worse yet, inbreeding. It is only thanks to the chakra that the kids are not born retarded yet. But the problems were glaringly obvious. Just look at Kagaya males. Another example where during the warring states clans had hundreds, approaching 1,000 members, now they were barely around 100 strong. That's why whenever there was the last male of a clan, Sasuke's situation, the Kage desperately tried to make him pair up with as many women to inject new blood into these family lines. They knew about these problems. But even they had to tiptoe around clans' matters. Of course, this allowed the loyal kunoichi that could influence the last male of the said clan to be put into these positions. Anyway, these decisions had to be done and were expected from leaders. They didn't have to like it, but it was their job to make sure the bloodlines survive. Each Kage had their own way of dealing with things, but none was completely clean. Even Tobirama is rumored to use a mild genjutsu and manipulations to make a few happy couples. Kiri spies certainly found multiple very suspicious starts for a relationship. These documents were so old they were long deemed not important to restrict, and even Kiri Chunin could read up about it. It was Konan's pastime activity actually. She loved to read about it and always pointed something funny or interesting to Rei. Especially when it came to the misdeeds of other Kages of old. It almost made him shake his head. But the scum Rei and Konan were hired to save? He raped powerless women only for his own petty ego. He tore families because he could. Because his father was daimyo. Because he will be one day daimyo. The documents about him made it abundantly clear why the Mizukage wouldn't care if the guy died. The pig was disgusting. Wanna kill him? Konan asked disinterestedly. Is it that obvious? Hey Sigid. Yup, you are all pondering, you know. Konan chuckled before she continued without care. Let's deliver him and get money. It's not like he matters to us. Right. Konan came closer and put her hand on the princeling's arm. They're done. I used my Suetun chakra to relax his heart. He will die of heart stroke a few months later. Rei smiled at her and chuckled. Sigh. It was all so easy after all. It was only hours later when panting Kakuzu held both remaining Konans enwrapped in his threads. So which one of Yu is the original? He heaved after the fight the girl just put him through. The surroundings were completely destroyed. Earth gouged, ground incinerated. The previous forest all but disappeared. None. The calm women pierced by his threads through various painful organs impassively stated with small smirks, not showing an ounce of pain. Kakuzu got a very bad premonition when they suddenly started glowing. A rattling explosion resounded through the area, creating a kilometer-wide crater. These 2 paper clones were carrying Konan's most potent explosive seals up to date. Far away, Konan only cheerfully nodded her head in satisfaction as she did Guts pose, startling Rei, who dropped the prince headfirst because of it. Her experimental seals passed their trial. In the center of the crater, Kakuzu's body fell down, dead, all his hearts pulverized. 3 hours later his Suetun heart finally arrived from scouting Kiri and merged into the pitiful shredded remains of his body. He took a sudden deep breath as he came back alive and groaned, mentally scanning his body. He was half dead, missing more organs than comfortable. Most of his threads snapped, pulverized, atomized, burnt. 4 hearts destroyed. No one has done a number like this on him since Hashirama. You gotta be fucking shitting me. He croaked. His head fell onto the ground with a thud, unconscious. Rei and Konan delivered the prince to the guards guarding the entrance to the castle. They still wore their blank ANBU masks so nobody really recognized them. Stating they were busy, they quickly disappeared before any smartass decided to invite them in front of Daimyo. Rei and Konan were not about to spend their day in that heap of problems. They were in the capital of Mizu and they were going to enjoy it. Ray and Conan found themselves in the best restaurant in the city, their Hittite stashed in the storage seals. They picked a table in the corner to be inconspicuous, but they both forgot this was the so-called higher society of a feudal world. The second Conan walked in, many wealthy young masters turned their heads in her direction. Ray's jaw hit the floor when he saw it. Brothers, are you perhaps also transmigrants from a cultivation world? What's with these lecherous looks? He couldn't help but mentally ask in utter bafflement. In the end he realized these young masters are everywhere. They are flooding the Omniverse. A shiver ran through his spine and a horrified look appeared on his face as he imagined Kisame spitting a tsunami of arrogant chibi young mast. Ouch! Conan thankfully swatted him, ending the nightmare as they finally reached the table and sat down. Young masters everywhere. Ray mumbled at her curious look, a shiver running through him. Conan blinked and tilted her head as she scanned the room with the corner of her eye. These utterly powerless retards who stare at me without realizing it gets them closer to death? She asked in a deadpan voice, quietly so only Ray could hear her. Oh. He nodded. Conan only smiled, stood up from her chair, walked to Ray, and sat on his lap. Then let them seethe in their little world. Ray could feel her but pressing onto his crotch. We will enjoy ours. Conan saucily whispered to him. The diner from then on was a very pleasant matter. If the hordes of murderous glares from incompetent young nobles were disregarded. Ray and Conan left the restaurant in a merry mood, half-hugging as their heads were resting on each other. It was a nice evening. Ray stated. Conan hummed. But I still like cuddling on the bed more. Her face bloomed into a genuine full smile. It made Ray happy and satisfied. That smile was the entire reason why Ray bothered. Conan didn't smile like that. Ever. When she did, it meant she was inwardly jumping from joy. It was the same kind of smile she had when they slept together for the first time. Since then, Ray wanted to make her smile like that again. He snuggled his head more into her hair, pulling her closer with his hand on her hip. As they got close, he kissed her cheek, making her close her eye. I love you, Conan. Ray whispered to her, making the smile widen. I love you too. Conan blushed and nibbled on her lower lip. Ray could feel the fingers grasping his hip, squeezing and dancing, not knowing what to do. He spun her and kissed her crimson lips, completely ignoring the audience and the gasping grandmas who were hiddenly fangirling at such a scandal. As the duo played with their tongues, caressing the other's tongue with theirs while gazing into each other's eyes and feeling their joined souls quiver at the intimacy. It was enough for them to be completely and utterly in need of more. Conan's hand snaked under Ray's kimono, feeling up his muscles while her eyes were not so subtly hinting she wanted him to feel up her chest. Ray ended their kiss, separating, making Conan sad and confused. She looked at him with an apparent question on her dejected face. Ray leaned closer to Conan, making her smile and close her eyes as she awaited his kiss, but he moved his head to the side in order to reach her ear. We are being followed. He gently whispered while still tightly clutching her body to his. They outwardly looked like a couple intimately hugging. Conan froze. Her brows furrowed, but then Ray felt it. She grew stoic. Now, coming from completely happy and elated to the heavens to stoic in a second, that was never a good sign. He barely managed to pull away from her ear and give her another searing kiss to get her head back into the gutter, away from murderous thoughts. When the kiss ended, he put his forehead on hers. Don't go blowing up the entire capital city. He gently admonished, making Conan blush. Yes, she was about to activate her exploding tags she positioned all around the city when they entered it. Because she was irritated at her lovey-dovey time being interrupted. But who could blame her? She was enjoying Ray's lips when some idiot decided to interrupt them. One city is a small price to pay for that. Let me deal with it, Kay? Don't go blowing things up. Ray whispered, making Conan nod in a great reluctance. Now she won't even be able to blow up that restaurant where the idiots made Ray feel bad with their stares. And she already packed it full with exploding tags too. TSCH, wasted effort. Conan tried to avert her gaze from Rei, her cheeks red, but he cupped her chin and trailed kisses on her mouth. She sighed dreamily as she reciprocated. Rei was half a mind to just let Conan blow the capital up and enjoy her body right there. She was definitely not making it easy for him, ramping up his desire higher and higher. But he was giving the annoying shits a time to approach. By now they were surrounded and the audience already left from fear. Even the very reluctant grandmas sullenly left while hitting the heads of the idiots who were surrounding Rei and Conan with their walking sticks. "Cut it out." A huffy voice resounded loudly through the street. Rei ended the kiss with a very annoyed sigh. He looked over his shoulder and saw a lean man with a fan, clad in luxurious attire, and a very punchable mug that screamed one thing only. "Young master." Around the smug idiot were hordes of people holding swords. The entire street was empty bar them. They all looked high and mighty, thinking they have the upper hand. "You peasant! Why are your hands on my girl?" The young master screamed, pointing his folded fan at Rei, who only blinked at the boy in utter astonishment. "Unhand her at once. She belongs to this master from now on," he smugly exclaimed. "For your cheek I will grant you a swift death." Rei's mood sank. He just met a young master disease. His mind blanked out and every word of caution and not blowing things up disappeared from his mind on instinct. Young masters were truly fearful beings. Even someone as collected as Rei was afflicted with a mind effect, rage when they opened their mouth. Without even thinking he raised his hand, palm facing the sky, as a small blue ball fire appeared above it. Conan's eyes went wide as her mouth opened in O when she saw what he decided to use. The blue flame was similar to Mokotan. Merge between Katan, Suitan, and nature energy as the stabilizer. Conan suddenly felt as she was enveloped with a coating of Rei's Suitan, Katan, and nature energy, not different from how they coated themselves to prevent being soaked in heavy rain. In a blink of an eye, a wave of light blue flames spread away from Rei, growing and swirling until a massive tornado of bluish flames burst out from the city, reaching the clouds. The flames visibly chilled even the air while violently spinning. Fortunately, Rei didn't concentrate the jutsu towards the ground but fired it to the sky. Otherwise, the capital city would be akin to Cocytus. The entire street was covered in these bluish flames dancing on a sheen of ice, chilling anything that touched them to the bone. The young master and his guards were already dispersed into the air as sparkling ice dust, as their bodies without chakra couldn't guard against the chilling flames and froze way beyond the shattering point. It was not the end though. The flames in the sky froze the molecules of water in the air, making them heavy, falling to the ground as vicious winds whipped the ground. For the first time in history, the city experienced a ferocious hailstorm. The people shrieked in fright as they hid inside their houses. The animals loudly panicked. The roofs creaked as the small shards of ice continuously fell on them. Cling, cling, cling. The ice fell from the sky, covering the streets and the buildings as if it was snow. The temperature of the entire city dropped far below zero as an eerie bluish mist started forming, all the while the sky burned with the bluish flames, engulfing the entire horizon in blue light. The entire city was as if under a blue lamp as the hailstorm ravaged it. And when the tornado stopped, the hailstorm ceased, the flames extinguished, only the bluish highlight in the sky still present. The frozen street was empty. Conan and Rei long gone.